I'm here with my good friend, Ben Waters. How are we doing today, Ben?
Doing well. How are you, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks. Ben has suggested North by Northwest for today's, critique, I suppose. Made in 1959 by Alfred Hitchcock, of course. Rotten Tomatoes, 99% with the critics, 94% with the audience. So much loved. The costume designer on IMDb is cited as Harry Kress, but we'll get into that, I guess, at some stage, because there's a few different stories of how the costumes and, especially with Eva's costumes came to be on the big screen. But first off, Ben, tell me, why did you pick this one as your non-Bond stylish film to review?
So I'll be honest with you, I undersold it a little bit. I thought if I gave you both barrels at the upfront, I was worried I would be too much of a fanboy for you to bring me on. But I love this movie. It's like a defining movie in my life.
Right. Okay.
So it hit me right at just the right time. I was in university in my third year, our junior year in the States. I can't remember what you guys call it in the UK, and I was a sociology major. So I was 21 at the time, about 21, and this great professor was all about sociology. The class was all about perspective, and he used this movie constantly as a reference, and the whole bit with the photograph and the knife, and saying that it's not that you can't trust anything, but it's all about you got to be able to look at different things from different points of view. And it has been this defining kind of thought process in my life that led me to then I ended up as a cop and a detective, and now as an attorney. It's the kind of pivotal moment that sort of defines your life. So I love the movie for that reason. And then, almost embarrassingly, this movie defined my style until about 2010.
Okay.
It's Cary Grant. You can't go wrong with Cary Grant. It's classic. And while it's maybe not always the most trendy, it's always, at the time, I thought it was the safest, because it's never going to go out of style. It may not be, what's hot right now, but if you model things after Cary Grant, you're not going to go wrong, which to a degree, I still feel, because it's Cary Grant.
Right.
But I finally found out what works for Cary doesn't necessarily work for me. So when I started finding my own voice, kind of sartorially, left this one and so it's funny to look back now, especially on this last viewing, and say, yeah, I probably didn't look as cool as I thought I looked, because this way that the suit hangs on Cary is not the way it hangs on me.
And is that a physique thing, or is that the length of the jacket? What's going on?
Oh yeah, physique, length of the jacket. The funniest, and we'll skip ahead in the movie at the end. I do love when the professor comes in at the end and gives him another change of clothes. It's fitted slacks and a shirt, whereas now it would be some jogger trainer sort of just sloppy, but they give him like fitted tailored trousers and a shirt. But that last scene, if you notice, I don't think it was a French cuff shirt, but he sort of folded. It was a button cuff, but he folded it back still.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, when I first got into this, when I was starting to buying my first suits and some other stuff, I would try to do that. I would try to do that fold back on the cuff, on a button cuff, like he did in the movie, and it just it doesn't look right when Cary does it. And you watch it now, and it certainly didn't look right when 25-year-old Ben was trying to pull it off in 1999 or something like that. I went through an awkward phase because of this movie to a small degree.
Well, I was going to say, and take this within the spirit that it's intended, Ben, but it occurs to me that maybe you've grown into a better look for the Cary Grant style now. I mean, you've got the salt and pepper hair going on, slightly taller, I imagine. So like the look could probably complement you more now than it would do in your early 20s.
It might. It's still actually the physique wise, I was probably skinnier in my 20s from the way Cary. They got a couple of shots of them without a shirt on, where he's pretty wiry. But it's also, the other thing I love about this movie is, much like I think they tried to get infamously wanted Sean Connery to sleep in a suit. I think this is like the opposite of that. It is a man who is so comfortable in that suit. He just wears it like if it was anyone else wearing, just bump around the house in something comfortable. He just wears it so easily. But I'm off topic. But in what you suggest, to kind of grown into it, I think, I got the salt and pepper hair going on now. But I found out what what I feel most comfortable in, and it's tweaking things a little bit. It started to change when I started doing a made to measure from a place in New York, and I had some options. I wasn't buying off the peg. So when I bought off the peg, it was easier to do kind of that look,
Yeah.
especially at the time when there was no vent in the back, which drives me nuts now. But that was my preference because it was Cary Grant's preference in North by Northwest.
Right. Yeah. Which looks great until, well, I mean, reportedly, like the no vent looks great, the kind of column look from the 30s, but until you start putting your hands in your pockets, then everything kind of ratchets up and loses shape. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's scenes when he's waiting for the contact by the bus stop before the crop duster comes along, and he's got his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Looks just fine. I mean, it's not really kind of got bent out of whack at all.
There was an awkward one. He goes hands in his pockets. Then when he meets Eve after the shootout, after the little shooting, and they're in that little studio wooded area, he puts his hand in his pockets, and I think it's because the waist of the trousers are so high. It really has an awkward look to it because it's a profile. It's to the side, and his hands are up so high. It really does. That one I noticed it, but not so much when he was waiting for the bus. But later in the movie, it's a really awkward the way it bunched it. It had an odd aesthetic.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump to a little bit of IMDb trivia, but I remember the wood scene. Apparently, the studios wanted that cut. Well, they didn't even want to film it in the first place. They said, look, you know, this is going to cost us a fortune. We've got to plant 100 odd trees just for a bit of exposition here. But luckily, Hitchcock had full control of the cut, the running, the artistic direction in his contract. So anything he said went. And so that scene, they had to plant them fucking trees, and they had to do that film. But I really like that scene. I think some of the, you know, everything in that moment is truthful between the two of them, isn't it? Yeah, and it's kind of a long time coming, isn't it?
It is, but it was also one of the things I noticed last night, because I've watched this movie a bunch, but it'd been a little while since I've seen it. The writing in particular just felt really not bad, just of the time. It was a little just a hair, kind of just that retro. You know, it's a dated piece. Just the way the cadence and the diction, it was almost even a little stilted at times. Well, again, still holds up, but you just know it's from the 60s.
Yeah,
59, but yeah, that era.
I'll tell you one scene that really grabbed me is that when he goes and he's looking for the main guy in the house. So he goes into the state Senate building. This is just before this guy gets stabbed in the back with a knife. And
the UN.
Yes, thank you. He's at the UN and he's questioning this guy, and he goes, so were you at the house last night? He goes, no, I was here. He goes, well, what about your wife? Well, my wife is dead. And all this time he's giving these answers and he doesn't know who Cary Grant is. He goes, maybe you can tell me who you are. So I go, well, who's this guy in this photo? But he keeps on giving out all of this information just before he gets stabbed. Nowadays, if anyone came up to you, Ben, and pulled you aside,
who are you? Just
before you went into the courtroom, and I was like, Ben, did you go to this gym last night? Was this you in the photo? Like, get the fuck out. You know, you'd never have like a nice back and forth for about 5 minutes before realizing who it is. But
yeah, you finally get to that. Just tell me what's going on. But we're way deep in that conversation before. You think what is this all about? What happened before my wife is dead? That is, you think at some point that the question will be raised.
It's like, do I have to give you my social security number? Maybe you can tell me who you are first. I mean, anyway, yeah, it's so I mean the suit itself, man. Maybe we can just crack in and do a little bit of the suit. I mean, it's such an iconic suit in terms of it. I think it got voted #1 as the best, maybe Esquire or some fan mag voted one of all time suits. And I found myself, especially this time, watching the suit more than anything else in the film.
Yeah.
And I know that there is also someone wrote like a short story or a dissertation on the suit, but from the point of view of the suit. I think is it Todd McEwen? I want to get that name right. Is it Todd? Yeah,
I haven't heard of this one. I gotta check this out.
Yeah, so it's Todd McEwen who called it gorgeous and wrote a short story called Cary Grant's Suit, which recounted the movie's plot from the viewpoint of the suit. which is really cool. I've got I had a look briefly online before getting it, but it's under some kind of subscription paywall, and I didn't.
Oh man.
So, yeah, but I might dig that out. But there's, I mean, so it's a free free button roll 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it 2 button roll 3? Have I fucked that up?
Yeah, three roll 2.
Thank you. And Cary Grant would always say, even in a GQ piece that he wrote, that he would always want to be in the middle of fashion. You know, he didn't want to be too far forward that it looks like he's a dandy, and simultaneously you didn't want to be too far behind where everything looks dated. So you have to hit that sweet spot of where fashion is. And I still think for the size of him, this suit, for any man that is his like a Cary Grant frame, you could quite easily get away with wearing a suit like this today and not look dated. But that's
not at all.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, totally goes back to what I was saying before about Cary Grant. You can never go wrong using Cary Grant as your model, and you may not hit it in that sweet spot, but you're never going to be that far outside the margins. And in particular, just that Cary Grant wearing a suit, I mean, it never doesn't drape perfectly. No matter what he's doing, where he's standing, you know, even the shirt and tie combination, just always perfect. The one thing about this suit for me is there are some scenes where it almost looks different, like the way, and I think maybe it's the lighting this time in particular, maybe it's the HD, you know, and like you said, we talked off screen about the seeing in the bigger screen rather than something on streaming or something, even on an old VHS if you're that old. There's some, I think it's the lighting in certain scenes where it really does look like a different suit in some places, which always kind of fascinates me. It's always been a bit of a mystery. It looks one way, you find a still photo from the scene, like, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. And then see something like, there's a little bit more red in that than I thought, or something.
Yeah, I always thought before watching it, just by looking at the stills on different blogs and magazines, that it was just a grey plaid suit. But you can have a look at this and you can see, especially in the train scenes, I think, or particularly, you can see definitely the blue overchecks that are going on in the plaid. I think that's very vivid. And the kind of, there's more of a stripe going on in the shirt tie, so it's not like a block silver or grey. There's different bits of pinstripe going on, so there's definitely some things that have come alive when you can see it in HD as opposed to watching it on your phone, which I must have done when I first watched this film for some reason.
Or VHS, man, you got to put that old tape in there and you get the tracking.
Yeah, maybe I did see it in VHS back in the day. So I did find it interesting that Cary Grant always had it in his contract that MGM would pay for his suits. I like that.
Isn't that brilliant? That's so awesome.
It's like, well, I'll bring my own wardrobe to the set, and everyone at MGM must be going, oh, cool, nice one. Well, that'll save $1 or $2. We don't have to get down and sort out. And you go, no, I'll bring my own wardrobe, but let me go to my tailor first, and you pay for it.
Yeah, I'm going to pick this out and give you the bill. Let's bring in my wardrobe.
That's pretty sweet. And so he went to Kilgour French and Stanbury, and used his regular tailor, which was Arthur Lyons. And by the way, there is some conjecture out there as well online. I'm not saying that I'm the complete arbiter of this information. I'm just going by the common consensus on this one. So Arthur Lyons was the tailor for the Duke of Windsor at the time. And so I think Cary Grant became good mates with him and was very keen to follow the style of Duke of Windsor, apparently. And so this is where there's also a little bit of ambiguity that comes into play. That in one of the scenes where he takes off the suit jacket and shirt to take a shower, he reveals one of the labels that says Quintano on the inside of the jacket. Now, apparently 2 stunt versions were made for this particular suit because he's rolling around in the dust fields, etc. He's avoiding getting mown down by a crop duster. So they had to make various incarnations of the suits. Now, how many in total were made of the original and how many were made by Quintano? Not entirely clear. There's not like an absolute on that one. And there are some rumors that Norton and Sons also made this suit, according to Vanity Fair. But
you know, I remember I've read a couple of biographies on him, but it's been a while. And again, I'm getting terrible with names. The Sinclair before that, his normal guy, the friend of the Duke of Windsor, I think that's my understanding, is that he was always wanting him. And I assume that recreations were made, and that's probably where, because that was one of the dirty ones anyway when he took it off. So it just all kind of makes sense. Maybe he has an original and then they take it to someone to try to do some knockoffs for the stunt work. And to tear it up and whatnot. Because let me tell you, you're not going to clean a suit in 20 minutes like they did in that movie.
That's what I thought. Is that a
That's
thing?
one of the. No, there's no even
that...
even in 1959. There's there's no way it happens in 20 minutes. There's no way it happens overnight that quick. And you hit the buzzer and the guy's there in seconds. Like that is some movie.
I thought this was an American thing. I thought, is this what
that there's no way maybe in 1959 at something like the Ritz or the Plaza, but even then I think it's a stretch.
Have you ever been to the Plaza?
I've never been to the Plaza. I've been to Mount Rushmore.
Oh really? Oh cool.
Yeah, I was into motorcycles for a long time, and I got my dad into motorcycles, and I had some work conflict, so we missed the actual Sturgis rally. This is about 11 years ago now, but we hit that area like the week after, which wasn't, you don't miss all the parties, you miss all the parties and everything, all the good times, but at least it doesn't take it 40 minutes to get a beer because there's no line, there's nobody there.
Right.
But you could actually drive around and see some of the stuff and pop off. So we didn't go into the actual park. From what I said, it's pretty close to. And I think they shot on location for a few places there. And then there's a whole lot of the matte painting backdrops and rear projections.
Yeah.
This movie, but what is hilarious to me, and you wouldn't know it until you actually visit Mount Rushmore, is that the climax, the final scene, is as fictitious as the 20-minute sponge cleaning of the suit. Like there's no way that finale happened the way it happened. There's no landing strip up there. There's no house up there. There's no way to get on the back of the heads. It's just utter bollocks, but it cracks me up every time now. Because how else would you know? You'd think it's the real thing if you've never been there, but you get there and see like there is no way that happens.
That is movie magic. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I guess it makes sense. I had the same thing. I went to when I went to Carrara, the marble place over in Italy, and they did the beginning of Quantum of Solace up there with the car chase.
Right.
And before that, he kind of comes off a little road, and like there's a little police roadblock, and it sends him to the top of the Carrara marble. But if you go to the top of Carrara, you realize that there's no fucking little side road, and there's no way you can start at the top of this mountain and work your way down. It's basically a kind of spear point mountain of pure marble, and there's no way that he could have started off the road. But I was like, oh yeah, that's how they did it. They must have just completely made it up like movies.
Yep.
Yeah. I did hear also in IMDb that they sell the North by Northwest DVDs like by the dozen in the tourist shops up there.
Oh, I bet. But
didn't get permission to do any, well, like apart from the rear projections and like the odd kind of scene, no specific filming was allowed up there apparently. And
I think maybe that's why they only had a couple of those. It was only about 2 shots where he really would look like he was on the deck and on location, but they didn't have go back to what didn't have a point. They didn't have a permit to do in front of the United Nations as well. And there's that famous scene where a guy recognized Cary Grant as he's walking up the steps, and he does this double take. It was like a legit, like, is that Cary Grant? They had no permits. They weren't extras. They just set up a shot, go run across the street to get him. We got one shot of this. And one guy did this double take on that scene where he's walking up the stairs. It's hilarious.
That's nuts. That's nuts because I looked at that scene and I thought, I wonder if they did have anything. And who's that guy? Is he integral? But it's just like a little blink and you miss it moment, isn't it?
It's a blink you miss it. Yeah. There's another. Actually, my favorite. There's a GIF floating around of this one that when he's in the police car. And that's another one of those real terrible rear projection scenes where they do a U-turn. He gets the phone call and they go to the airport. So they're supposed to lean, and Cary starts to lean, and the other cop didn't, and you can see Cary nudge him and like do his eyes like, this dude, come on, and it's a quick and you miss it, but it's there. And we got to try to find that. It's out there in GIF form. I found it a couple of times, and it's funny. It's just that rear projection. It's just that acting on a blue screen. It's one of the great little Easter eggs.
That's awesome. I'll have to revisit that. Well, he couldn't have too much room for complaint. I mean, he was paid a small king's ransom to be in that film, right?
I have no doubt.
And because it all got really delayed and went over budget, and the production like went over the shoot. He was paid like about $5,000 a day just for turning up and doing after shots. So he wasn't doing too bad.
He wasn't complaining.
As well as charging fans 15 cents per autograph at the top of Mount Rushmore, I heard as well.
Yeah, that Mr. Grant and at his pinnacle, it's one of the things he says in later life he regrets. He was kind of a dick,
Really,
to his fans. He did that tour later in life, like an evening with Cary or something, where he went around and did kind of just Q&As with the audience. And there's some audio of them out there, and he does sort of regret some of the ways in which he maintained his privacy back then.
Brilliant. Well, nice one. Thanks, Ben. Again, people should be following you if they're not already. I'm sure they are. Instagram, Benjamin D. Waters. So check out Ben over there with his suits. And I really like the way that you lay out the suits. I've said this 1,000 times, but you kind of do the wardrobe, the pictures of the tie next to the jacket before it all kind of goes on, and then you see the prestige as you put it on. So
I've been slack on. I've been so stressed the last couple of days. I've forgotten that I'm hit or miss lately. I've been rushing around in the morning. Sometimes I'll set it out kind of at night and just get the photographs done ahead of time. I peek behind the curtain. I look a little bit more OCD than I really am right now. But yeah, the last couple of days, man, I've been so stressed and so out of it. I've completely forgotten. I've almost been in the car like, okay, here's what I'm wearing today.
Here's a picture of my foot on the pedal.
More or less. But while I got you, the Nitas, if anybody follows me on Instagram, if anybody likes the suits, I get all my stuff primarily through Nita's Tailor through Hong Kong, fully bespoke. They're still doing a 10% off for the listeners as we are getting at least close to the end of this horrible 2020 nightmare, because in my mind we're still in 2020 until we get to go outside again. It's still 2020, but I'm hoping that meme floating around of that once this is over and when everyone gets that vaccine, that we're coming back into a new age of the roaring 20s. So suit up, look good, get a haircut, get a shave, get a new suit. And when the time comes, we're going to go out and have some fun, and Nitas will help you out. 10% off for the listeners. You'll do a virtual fitting. So you get online with someone to help you out. They'll walk you through taking all the measurements, and then you get to pick all the extra stuff, all the accessories, all the cut style. So awesome. You're going to get exactly what you want. 10% off. Can't go wrong. And suits are coming back. We're going to make it happen. We're going to will it into existence.
I think people are just gagging. They're on the starting blocks to wear the suits again. You know what I mean?
I'm hoping so.
A few red carpet events, I'm sure, hopefully as well. So,
hey, going out to the pubs after this is all over is going to be a red carpet event, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Everyone's going to be wearing their suits to pubs again, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Good shout. So nitafashions.com and also nita.fashions on Instagram. But if you follow Ben, he tags them all the time, so you can check those guys out. Nice one.
They're an easy find if you can find me, for sure.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ben. Cheers, pal.
Enjoy
your weekend.
Cheers. Take care. All right. Bye.